Carnivortex, the Carnivortex. How did I get sucked into this Carnivortex? The Carnivortex, the Carnivortex. How did I get sucked into this Carnivortex? Beef, butter, bacon, eggs, eat fatty meat. Sounds great! The Carnivortex, the Carnivortex. How did I get sucked into this Carnivortex? The Carnivortex, the Carnivortex. Just give it a shot and you'll be carnivore next.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Carnivortex. I am NoCarbBarb, and I, along with the HighFatCats, who are my managers, editors, and producers, and are closely watching me from a sunbeam right now, bring you another episode of the Carnivortex. Today, I have the honor of having Lynn Divoky as my guest. I'm also honored to call her my friend, and I'm really excited about our conversation today. And just for those of you who may have never watched the Carnivortex, this is a show where I just pick a topic that I dream up from someplace and then decide that, hey, maybe we need to discuss it. So before we get started, Lynn, will you please introduce yourself for those who may not know you?
Sure. Well, my name is Lynn, and I am a 57-year-old wife, mother, grandmother of 3.5 because my youngest is pregnant. So I'm super excited about that. And I am a retired nurse, had to retire because of my severe mast cell activation syndrome. And I was very morbidly obese. My top weight was somewhere between 350 and 360 pounds. And I discovered the carnivore diet, and it has absolutely changed my life.
Wow. Yeah, and you have a YouTube channel, the Midlife Carnivore.
Yes, so I started my YouTube channel, Midlife Carnivore, right when I started, just a few days after I started carnivore. So if you go back and you look at my first video, I look a lot different than I do now. And I did that because I wanted to hold myself accountable, never dreaming that anybody would ever watch my channel. I'm sure you understand that because, like, starting a new channel, that's like, is anyone ever going to watch this? You know? And I was so amazed at the carnivore community and how wonderful the carnivore community is. And the support was absolutely incredible. And through having my channel, I got connected with Healing Humanity. And so it has just been an absolute roller coaster. I'm on the leadership team of Healing Humanity and am now actually going to be one of the featured people in the documentary. There's 3 people that are going to be the 3 main featured people, and I'm going to be one of them. I'm so surprised. Yeah. So in June, they filmed me and here in Washington State where I live. And it was amazing, so exciting. And those who know me and follow me know that my husband flies. And see, I'm in his office. I've got his airplane and his picture behind there. And so everything around him is aviation. But we do have a small airplane. And we've been married for 35 years, and I had never been able to fly with him. And one of the bigger reasons is because since we got our plane, I was too big. It's a small plane. It's like a Cessna 150, which is one of the smaller planes. It's just a 2-seater. I was never able to even fit into it. And so I saved my first flight with my husband for filming with Carrie and Adam in June for the documentary. And so I'm super excited so it's been amazing. It's been absolutely incredible. I'm able to do things now that I could never do before because I was pretty much housebound and totally disabled, always having to call 911 and just feeling horrible on a day-to-day basis. So it's pretty amazing what carnivore has done for me, not just for my body, but just for my life in general.
And if you have not watched her channel, you need to, because she does the best job of anybody at documenting her progress. And it is just mind blowing to me, and just how consistent you are. And from the first time that I watched you, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to watch next week. I want to see what progress. And it is just really cool to watch your journey unfold. And to me, that is just so inspiring.
Oh,
It
thank you.
gives people hope. I mean, it
And
gives
it's
me
not always
hope.
progress. Sometimes it's going a little bit the opposite direction from my weight standpoint. I'm at the point now where I've lost over 130 pounds. And, so right now when it comes to weight, it's kind of blip, 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 up and down, up and down, up and down. And I still have maybe 40 pounds to go. But from a mast cell activation standpoint and overall health standpoint, my health is just like night and day. You can't even compare. And you've seen my before pictures of my face with how inflamed my skin was, which I always say is a reflection of what the inflammation was inside my body. And healing my gut was a huge, huge factor in that. And going low histamine lion diet really majorly turned the corner for me and healed so much. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, well, I say you have made progress every week, even if the scale didn't do exactly what you wanted it to do. The trajectory is still very
Yes,
positive, and you're healing so much. And I think it's just so easy to get super hung up on that scale weight. I think we're
agree.
programmed to be like, the scale is the master, and we have to be whatever
Yeah,
weight. And then if we get there, then it's like, oh, well, now we should be whatever weight or whatever body fat percentage. And
yeah,
really, what matters is our health. Like, how do we
absolutely.
feel? What is going on inside?
Yeah.
And
And I can do things now and I can exercise now. I can travel. So the rest of the healing is going to come and the weight will come off. But right now, I'm just staying the course and I'm doing what has healed me, which is the important part. So,
well, and I think that the message that you're bringing to everybody is that you need to be consistent.
mhm,
It's not, oh, hey, I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 2 months. It's, okay, every day I'm going to get up and I'm going to eat the food that's healthy for my body. I'm going to move to the best of my ability
mhm,
at the point that I'm at particularly. I mean, it's just, and not try to say, okay, immediately I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat perfect. I'm going to run a marathon, all of those things that
right.
make it so hard to sustain. And so I think watching you and just saying, hey, day over day, you're doing what it takes. And
Mhm.
just a couple years, because how long has it been exactly?
It hasn't been 2.5 years yet, but it's been, I think November will be 2.5 years. Yeah. So next month I'll be at 2.5 years. I'm at 2 years and 5 months at the end of this month. Yeah.
But still, you made tremendous progress in a short amount of time because you're
Yeah.
down, what, 130 pounds, but maybe 150 or more of fat loss. Is
Almost
that right?
160 pounds of fat. And that is one thing that I do, which is I use a body composition scale. And so when I do report on what's happening, I show all my metrics and calculate my actual fat loss. Sometimes it's a fat gain of a few pounds. It just varies, but I've gained muscle, I've gained bone. And for a woman my age, I was so surprised, especially the bone, because when I first weighed in with my body composition scale, my bone mass was low. And now it's right in the middle, even a little bit upper portion of normal. And so that means so much to me because even with my mast activation syndrome, my risk for osteoporosis was high. And so just eating the food that gives me the building blocks to create bone has been huge, and so I'm stronger. I've gained about 25 pounds of muscle, and then the fat loss has been going on 160 pounds of actual fat. So I feel like a brand new person. I haven't I think that the last time I weighed what I weigh now, I was probably in my early 20s, so it's been a long time.
Your scale data is like a data nerd like me's dream. Have you ever graphed it?
You know what? I do have graphs. My app does give me graphs. Yeah. So one of these days I'll have to screenshot the graphs and show them. But I do it also, if I tap on each little metric, it'll show me the scale part, like where I'm at. And so even though, like you said, the scale itself and the number on the scale really isn't that important, I do look at things like visceral fat, and I'm more concerned about visceral fat than the subcutaneous fat. Like when I started, my subcutaneous fat percentage was over 70% of my body mass,
Oh.
which is crazy insane. And so I'm making tons of progress there. I'm not where I need to be, but the visceral fat, they give a score, and the score really needs to be below 5. And I started out at 30 and I'm now at 14. So I'm getting there. The upper limit of acceptable is 11. So I kind of look at that going, okay, because I can see that over the horizon, you know.
Oh my gosh, Lynn, you're unacceptable. I can't believe it.
I'm no, yeah. I mean, I'm still shooting for overweight. I'm still obese based on the numbers, but I don't feel obese. I look, and I ask my husband a lot of times. I ask him, and maybe I'm self-conscious, but I ask him, we're in a crowd, and I say, do I look like a normal individual, like compared to the other people in this crowd? And he's like, oh yeah, in fact, you're thinner than a lot of the people in this crowd. And that's just mind-blowing for me because I was always the heaviest person in the room by far. And it's just weird to actually be normal. And it's like so strange. It just kind of, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it because I've spent almost my entire adult life being obese, and a lot of it morbidly obese. So it's very surreal.
Well, your progress is amazing, and I can't wait to see where you're continuing to go.
Oh,
Well,
you're
thank you.
kidding.
I appreciate your help, Sheldon. That
Your
you must be
producer is here saying, come on.
nice. Like, yeah, let's test out the camera and the mic,
Yes.
and now he's going to sit where he's really not supposed to be sitting.
But
Just
I had a question for you because I know in your first video you talked about how you love the 80s. And of course, I'm an 80s kid too. I mean, I was in high school I graduated in 86. So I wanted to have you guess something about me.
oh gosh.
Okay. You mentioned 80s music. Okay. All right. So I'll give you a little bit of a hint, right? Because there's a lot of 80s music out there.
Okay.
So, and right now, my music taste is a little bit different than it was. But okay. So when I was in high school, let's just say I was a hopeless romantic. And so the music I listened to was very much in line with just love songs, that sort of thing. So I had one band that was my favorite band, and this was more early 80s. So I want you to try to guess what the band was.
Okay. All right. Just my first thought, early 80s, super romantic, Air Supply.
Yes.
I told you I was good at this. I like it.
Yes.
Okay, and for anybody watching this, I really didn't know. That was
You
my
did not
guess.
know. I didn't even tell
Gosh.
her I was going to ask her this.
I was like, hey, if I could really sing, which I can't, I will spare you this. And the cats would really be upset. And so would Lynn and all of you. But man, I'd start belting out, I'm all out of love right now. I just would.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So I was going, after I watched your video in your 80s, about the 80s, I'm like, I'm going to ask her, but I knew there's such a broad range of music. I knew I had to give you a hint.
Yeah, narrowing it down to like that genre is helpful. But gosh, there's so
Man,
many great songs in the 80s and so many great
but
bands
Air
and artists.
Supply was so popular. They were on the radio all the time, and they were the popular romantic genre band. So yeah, so
Yes.
anyone who's watching this who's young, go look them
Uh,
up.
yeah.
They're so
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah. And yeah, if you want romance, and especially you can just sit and like cry to Air Supply, I mean, it's just that good. And I have to confess that I thought that one of the fellows was a girl just vocally because his range. So I had a segue into our next topic, but I'll just go there because
I
you
messed
know
it
what?
up for you, I'm sure.
No, the 80s, they're not only a segue to everything, they're just the background of everything, like always. So I'm just going to take that and smoothly transition over to my topic today,
Okay.
which is the weight of carnivore. And thinking about that, obviously, your struggles and your journeys from morbid obesity to now thriving and healthy and 130 pounds down and 160 pounds of fat loss. So, obviously, that part of it, the literal weight. But I want to think about the weight of carnivore, almost like the levity of carnivore, the impact of carnivore. So, I'm just going to toss that out. And what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say that?
Life changing. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And coming from the medical field and being, having my career in nursing, the lack of hope is a real thing for people who are chronically ill. And of course, acutely ill, yes, but we're really looking at people who are chronically ill because the people who are acutely ill in the hospital, they need traditional medicine. We need to save their lives. But when it comes to chronic illness, the things that end up getting people into the hospital, obviously, other than injuries, obviously very a separate thing. You can't help it if you fall off a ladder and you break your leg or you get into a car accident. But to have hope to me is huge because people can feel better on medication, they can manage symptoms, but knowing that you have a chronic illness, a lot of people end up defining themselves by their illness. It guides them, it makes their decisions for them. And it's a burden. And so when you talk about the weightiness, it is a burden that people carry. Now you have this backpack full of each stone is an illness. And for many people, it just keeps compounding and compounding and getting heavier and heavier. And then they throw medication at it, and the medication has side effects. The medications interact with each other, often in ways that are unpredictable because there's no way you can study every drug interaction. I mean, we learn these things and we learn about interactions, and we do know some things about drug interactions, but just the weight of all of that really burdens people down. And I think people in dealing with patients, so many people have great outlooks. They have great attitudes. They can accept the fact that they're ill, but it's not like they wouldn't love to not be ill. Attitude means a lot. And so there's people who are, when they first get their diagnosis, they're very depressed. They're like, why me? I don't understand what happened because so many people followed the guidelines. There's a lot of people out there that are sick who tried to be healthy. Not everybody was like me and was morbidly obese. There's people who are just overweight. There's people who aren't overweight at all, but they're like skinny fat because they're just not that healthy on the inside. But they've been following the guidelines for diet. A lot of people exercise, they try to stay healthy, and then they still find out that they end up with illnesses. And sometimes it's things like just, okay, arthritis. My joints hurt, and it's chalked up to aging. And we know now that diet makes all the difference in the world. And so when I look at the carnivore diet, to me, it takes the weight off. Some people may see it as a burden because it's so restrictive, but in reality, it actually takes the burden off of those diseases. And once you feel better, it becomes easy. It's not a burden at all. It's light. It's simple. So that's a long answer, but that's where my brain goes when I think about the topic.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think everybody is trying to be healthy. Everybody is eating the foods that are promoted and trying to do the things that they've been told to do. And yet we're getting sicker and sicker. And I think that it gets even more complicated when there are illnesses and conditions that come up that are not, I would say, mainstream or everybody doesn't know about those. You've suffered from mast cell activation syndrome. Can you talk about that? What is MCAS and how did it manifest in your life and how is it now?
So mast activation syndrome is a it's considered rare, but it really isn't. And I've learned this since my diagnosis. And it took me almost 35 years to get a diagnosis because it didn't even have a name like 15 years ago. I mean, it may be close. Well, no, I think it got named in maybe 2009, but I was dealing with it since I was a young adult in my 20s. And so it originally started with things like really bad heat intolerance, exercise intolerance, menstrual issues that got diagnosed as PCOS. And looking back, I don't know for sure if it really was PCOS because I kind of look from a nurse standpoint. I look at, okay, if you get diagnosed with something and then the treatment doesn't work at all, then maybe we need to go back and look at the diagnosis and see whether or not it was accurate and
Oh,
see
no,
whether
no, wait a minute. No, maybe you're doing something wrong then because the treatment's not working. So obviously you're not following it. I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
I don't know. That some people do hear that, so you're doing it wrong. But I know that for me, when later on, when they started prescribing metformin for PCOS, they put me on metformin, didn't work at all. And they said, oh my gosh, PCOS, metformin really will help you and it'll make you start ovulating again. And didn't do a thing for me. But I didn't know then that I had MCAS. I also developed anxiety, severe anxiety, and it came out of nowhere. And I would even wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks. When I was resting peacefully, I didn't feel anxious, but there was something going on in my body that was causing these severe reactions. So I know that hormonally, there was stuff going on. And I did end up in a mental hospital for about 5 days. This was in my early 30s. The anxiety was so severe, I was convinced that I was going to die. And I actually took myself there. And I had been seeing a counselor, and the counselor saw this coming and just said, look, I could see you're kind of spiraling, and gave me a list of different mental hospitals around in our area. And so I left work one day because I just was convinced I was going to die, couldn't breathe, and was struggling, but it was all anxiety. And so they admitted me. So I spent 5 days there, spent a bunch of weeks in a partial hospitalization program, spent quite a few years seeing psychologists on various psych medications, the whole time gaining weight. But it wasn't until I was in my maybe late 40s that I started having other symptoms. And so I definitely developed the skin, the rosacea became an issue. Put on like a 2-year course of I think it was doxycycline that they put me on, which helped a little bit, but it wasn't really addressing the problem. And I hated taking medication. So I stopped. But I started having more severe reactions. And so working in the hospital, one day I ended up having a major dizzy spell, blood pressure through the roof. My heart rate was through the roof. The charge nurse put me in a wheelchair, took me down to the ER, and they did a full workup, cardiac workup, everything, and sent me home with meclizine, said, maybe it's your inner ear. Didn't do anything. And so then I saw a neurologist, had a couple brain MRIs. They didn't find any problems. And so I went through all of this, the medical system. I saw 17 different doctors trying to figure out what was going on. Later in my 50s, I started having throat swelling episodes where just out of the blue, my throat would swell. I'd have to call 911, tachycardia again, severe hypertension that would just hit. And at a baseline, I felt like had the flu or coming down with the flu all the time. And I had horrible joint pain and bone pain and muscle pain. And I had heart palpitations and then bladder irritability. My bladder would just release its contents with no warning sometimes. Sometimes it would just be like I wouldn't make it to the bathroom, but other times I would just no control. And it happened when I was out before in a restaurant, and I just like all over the seat that I was sitting on. It was just mortifying. And so I got severely worse when I was 54, and I was working as a nurse still, and I was working in outpatient nursing in gastroenterology and hepatology, and I got an abscess on my chest, and it was during the pandemic, and I struggled going to see a doctor because with me, heat was a huge trigger for my anaphylactic symptoms. And wearing a mask, just the heat from my breath triggered the throat swelling. And so, and nobody would, you know, everybody was like, you got to wear a mask. You know how it was, right? And so I don't know if it was as bad where you live as it is here in Washington State, but they were pretty hardcore. And especially since like where I lived, the first big outbreak was just like 20 minutes from my house. So it was really strict here. But so I kind of delayed in getting this treated, and it ended up being a pretty severe infection, and it tunneled all the way to my chest. And so I needed to go in like every other day. Was on some pretty powerful antibiotics and get it packed and drained. I had to drain, and I had to get it packed. And every other day I had to go back in and get it repacked, get the mask, hope the doctor would have sympathy and not make me wear it. And most of them did. So I was grateful, but it was very anxiety producing. Like because I was going to a walking clinic every time I had a different doctor. So I knew every time I had to explain, I have MCAS, the mask triggers. It was bad. But that infection put me over the edge with my symptoms. And so it also had gut symptoms. So I'd get a really bad abdominal cramping too, I have nausea. Like with MCAS, every part of your body, every organ system, including skin, brain, can be affected. And so for me, pretty much I had something going on with every organ system. And I was working from home at the time because I couldn't wear a mask at work. So they had me working from home. But I would be sitting there trying to help patients. And sometimes I was triaging and doing a lot of assessment over the phone. And sometimes people were severe, like they needed to go to the ER. So I had to have my brain working. And I would have nausea, I'd get dizziness, I'd have abdominal cramping. And every day I was having to work less and less and say, I can't do it anymore. I could see it coming that I was going to have to go on medical leave. And then my brain stopped working to the point where I couldn't think anymore. So I'd be in the middle of a call with a patient and my brain would freeze or my words would come out slurred. And it was not a stroke. This is all an MCAS thing. And so I finally acknowledged I can't do this. I have to go on medical leave. And so that was when I ended up on medical leave. Insurance said, you're totally disabled. We're going to pay you every month to stay home. And I just got worse and worse over the next year and gained even more weight. My mobility became really bad. I was limping all over the place, and I was having back issues and knee issues. It was just a horrible time of my life. And that's where when we talk about the weightiness of carnivore, I think back to the weightiness of how sick I was because I didn't have hope. And all I could see in my future was being more and more crippled and being more and more dependent on my husband and my youngest daughter, who's the one who lives closest to us. And I had lost hope. And with the incontinence, I couldn't really go very far. With the lack of mobility, I couldn't really go very far. With having these reactions where I was needing to call 911, I never knew what was going to cause a reaction. And so I couldn't even commit to going places because I had to think, well, is EMT going to be able to get to me if I go here or there? I live in Washington State. Even if I could hike, I couldn't have hiked because is EMT going to be able to get to me if I am back on a trail? And what's it going to be like trying to have to call 911? Am I going to lose signal and not even be able to? So that was my life. And so when you look at that and the weightiness of carrying that burden of illness, carnivore is nothing carnivore is easy. It's the easiest thing you could do. And especially when you start to experience healing. Within 3 days, literally, my inflammation was down to the point where my body pain was almost gone. My gut issues were resolved. Like I wasn't having the cramping anymore. I wasn't having the bloating anymore and all the gas and everything with my gut, which was honestly, there were times where I was doubled over with the abdominal pain because it was so severe. And that was gone in 3 days. So I don't know. I mean, what's weightier? Being sick or being healthy and just eating carnivore?
Yeah, that seems like a no-brainer to me.
Me too.
That's so I guess so it took them a long time to figure out that you had MCAS, and I gather that there really was nothing that they could give you or no medicine that they put you on that was helpful.
Well, so one of the things with mast cell activation syndrome is that it does respond to antihistamines. That is one of the, well, at least it used to be. I haven't been looking recently because sometimes diagnostic criteria does change. But at least when I was diagnosed a few years back, it was 2022 when I was officially diagnosed after a bone marrow biopsy. Now, not everybody has to get one, but I had to get one. But one of the diagnostic criteria was that symptoms get better with antihistamines. And so, but they didn't solve everything for me. All they did was help an acute attack. So with MCAS, there's kind of like, I describe it as like there's a baseline of how you feel from day to day, which is terrible. It's no way to live. But it's not like, okay, I got to call 911. And then there's these acute attacks. And so I was taking antihistamines every day. And I was also taking montelukast, which is another thing that helps with the mast cells. But I still felt terrible on a day-to-day basis. And honestly, it wasn't necessarily stopping the acute attacks. They were still happening. But I did find it. I have an EpiPen. I haven't ever had to use it. So I'm really glad about that I've never had to use the EpiPen because tachycardia is one of the symptoms when I get an acute attack. And you don't want to do an EpiPen because it's going to track your heart rate even up higher. But I did learn that if I took a chewable Pepcid and a rapid dissolve Claritin right when I started to feel symptoms, it would stop them. And sometimes I would have to take 2 Claritin, but most of the time one was okay. But I was still needing to take those 3-4 times a week. And so these episodes are scary. They're really, really scary. So when I went carnivore, I only needed to take them maybe once or twice a month, but I was still getting some of the attacks until I realized that, wait a minute, I forgot everything I thought I knew about histamine, and I didn't realize how much histamine can be in carnivore foods. If you're not careful, if you're not making sure it's really fresh, if it's not aged or smoked, egg whites are high in histamine. So there were these things that I was eating, like I was doing the BBBE, beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, right? Bacon is higher in histamine. So I was still filling my histamine bucket, and my histamine bucket was already pretty full. And so I went lion diet. And the picture that I often show of my face with the rosacea, that was actually still like maybe 4 months into carnivore. It hadn't quite healed it. I was losing weight. A lot of things were getting better, but I was still very inflamed. And it's because of the histamine. So it was about 4 months in, I went low histamine lion diet. And that is what really turned the corner for me. And now I don't ever have to use those, what I call my rescue meds, because I don't have those reactions anymore. So when it comes to medication, like the doctor that diagnosed me, he gave me these medications and basically said, come back in a few months if you're not feeling better. So many people have heard that from doctors, right? You're miserable, you're suffering, and it's like, here's some medication, come see me again later. But I actually sent him an email or a message through my chart and said, what about a low histamine diet? do you think I should go on a low histamine diet? And he said, well, you can if you want. And to me, that just set me over the edge because I don't know why. I think I was just really emotional at the time too because of all the suffering I was going through. This was before carnivore. This is like right when I got diagnosed, which is about over a year before I went carnivore. And I was just going, wait a minute. Like, why would you not know this? That I need to be careful with histamines. And so I never went back to see him ever again, you know. And it's like, this is so common. This is so common. Like the doctors, they don't, even with working in GI as a GI nurse, patients would ask us about diet. And it was always like fiber, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, make sure you've got a colorful plate. But we'd have patients like Crohn's disease, patients with Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, various different diseases, IBS. They'd ask, what should I be eating? And the doctors would always say, well, as long as you're not in a flare, there's no dietary restrictions at all. And the patients, I think they're like, didn't believe it. So many of them said, really? You're telling me that there's like diet doesn't matter? And this was a GI condition. These were gut conditions, but yeah, diet doesn't matter. I can eat whatever I want. Like what? Didn't make
Well,
any sense.
well, it doesn't make any sense either if, okay, you should only have dietary restrictions if you're in a flare. So if things are really bad, okay, then diet helps. Well, if it helps then, why would it not help when things aren't quite as bad? Why do you have to wait to get into an emergency situation before you implement,
Yeah.
some kind of dietary
Because
modification?
of the fiber myth. And of course, they don't see it as a myth. And back then I didn't either. I didn't know. The whole thing is you can't not have fiber. You need to have, and it's also the whole concept that the fruit, the vegetables, the whole grains, all of that stuff is where you get your nutrition. And meat, eggs, all that stuff is just protein. So there wasn't a lack of acknowledgement that you get protein from meat, but there was never any acknowledgement that you get all your vitamins and mineral, the stuff you need, you also get from animal-based foods. But the whole thing was you can't stay off of fiber. They would tell everybody in a flare, go low residue diet, which was super, super low fiber, but they wouldn't have them come back off completely. They were still having them eat all the white starchy foods because it's very much broken down a lot more. And what I was taught by the GI doctors was it's because an inflamed colon can be further aggravated by the fiber because it'll be like scrub brushes on your colon. And this was the story that we told our patients is this is why we're having you back off of the fiber because it's just going to aggravate that inflamed colon. Not that it is inflammatory, which now I know the grains are some of the most inflammatory foods out there. And so our patients would feel better and the flare would go down, but then it would be like, okay, go right back to your diet with your high fiber and all your fruits and vegetables and everything. And so it was this cycle. And some people, then give them the medication. And if that one medication stops working, we're going to get you on a biologic. And that's just the way it was. And some people could stay in remission and other people would keep going out of remission and keep having flares. And it's just chasing your tail all the time. No cure, no permanent remission, definitely without medication. That we never saw that. It was always just management. So,
And it's just really sad, literally standard American diet mythology. And I'm thinking, gosh, 100 years from now, when somebody looks back and they're looking at like Greek mythology, minotaurs, balls of twine, all of that stuff. And then you've got, okay, in America, these people are making up stuff about fiber. Like, what is this? This isn't even entertaining.
yeah.
So going back, you're suffering so much with MCAS. a great day is basically you can do nothing. A bad day is you're calling 911. How did you find the carnivore diet? How did you decide to transition over?
Well, I had actually found it twice. And back in 2021, heart of the pandemic, and I was morbidly obese. And I kept hearing people that are morbidly obese have worse outcomes if they get COVID. And so I'm like, I got to do something. I was one of the nurses that did not take the jab, and I was relying on my immune system. So I was doing everything that I knew to do. I was listening to the sensor doctor, and I was taking the stuff that they were saying to take. And I was fortunate enough to have a naturopathic doctor, and we had local privately owned pharmacies that would prescribe things. So I was doing everything that I could from that perspective to prepare myself, because I knew that I was going to end up getting it. My daughter was a children's pastor at the time, and she was around people all the time, and she was still not married then, still living at home, and I knew she was going to bring it home. So I thought it was all about weight loss. I actually was following Mindy Pelz, who focuses a lot on fasting in women. She's the one who wrote the book Fast Like a Girl, and loved her and was doing a lot of intermittent fasting. And I happened to listen to a podcast that she did with Paul Saladino. I had no idea who he was. I know right now he's kind of controversial because of his fruit thing, but at the time it was just literally a podcast about weight loss and gut microbiome. And I don't know that anybody really knows a whole lot about gut microbiome, but at the time it was like carnivore was presented as an option for weight loss. And I'd heard I'd been keto before, but I'd never even dreamed of carnivore because I was a GI nurse. So no fiber, really? There's no way. Fiber in keto, you can subtract it from your carbs. Yay. And it's
Net carbs, yeah.
carbs, exactly. So the fiber, yeah, it goes right through you, so you don't have to count it, but you still need it. So that was the mindset I had been on keto. And on keto also, I was all into the dessert, so I totally failed on keto. But so he introduced me to the concept of carnivore. So I thought, well, I'm going to try it. His alternative, he was actually talking about eating vegetarian too, depending on your gut microbiome. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go get an expensive test, because he was saying some people do better on vegetarian, other people do better on carnivore. I honestly don't think that's true, but that's what I was hearing at the time. And they were talking about getting a test to see what your gut microbiome is. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And there's no way I'm going to go vegetarian. I'm going to try carnivore. And so I did. So I did carnivore for 6 weeks. I lost weight. And then my daughter brought the virus home, and I breezed through it. Myself, my husband, my daughter all got it. And I absolutely breezed through it. I laid down for about an hour with a low-grade fever, took a nap. That was pretty much it for me. I lost my sense of smell, and I felt a little but I had amazing energy, took care of them, got through that. And so my why was gone. And so I quit doing carnivore. And so it wasn't until about almost a year of being on medical leave and getting worse and worse that my husband stumbled across a video from Amanda from Carnivorous Me, who's no longer doing her channel, but she has an amazing story. And so he said, hey, watch this. And it was talking about how she put her rheumatoid arthritis in remission and really helped her medical conditions. And that's when it finally clicked that, wait a minute, this is not just about weight loss. This is about healing. And so I decided, I kind of binge watched her channel for a while. And then I asked my husband, like, okay, I'm going to do this, but will you do it with me? And he said, yes. So at end of May 2023 was when we started, and I didn't do it for weight loss that time. And the weight loss has been great, but I did it because I was so sick and desperate and have not turned back. I dove in, and I don't necessarily recommend people to go to cold turkey, but that's what I did. I dove in cold turkey and have never looked back. And I think the fact that, and I didn't get like the keto flu. I actually was one of the lucky ones. I didn't have that adaptation with the keto flu. I knew better. I knew I needed to hydrate and I knew I needed to have the sodium. So I did that. And I think I avoided the keto flu because of that. I didn't the first time around. But that's how I came across carnivore.
Did you ever imagine that you would see the benefits that you did when you started?
No, no, not even. It was just kind of like throwing something out there just to see what sticks. I'd tried a variety of different things throughout my life when it came to eating, trying to feel better, and nothing stuck. And so this was the next thing to throw against the wall and see if it stuck. And it's the only thing that has. Yeah.
And Dave, your husband, did it with you even though he didn't have a lot of things to heal or wasn't looking to lose weight?
He had about 20 pounds to lose. In fact, just recently, an old photo came up on my camera or my Facebook for whatever. But anyways, it came up and it was from several years ago. And I sent it to him and I was like, look at how chunky you were. And so but he didn't have health problems. He's metabolically healthy, but he did it to support me. And he's still doing it. He'll eat some nuts here and there. We get him, he loves nuts. And so he hardly does it at all, but we get the big bag of shelled peanuts in the shell from Costco. All it is peanuts. And because he used to take nuts by the mouthful, just the handful, and eat a lot of nuts. And so we figured, okay, you have to take the time to shell them. And so he ends up only eating a little bit, but he can handle it. He doesn't bother him at all. So he's still pretty much probably 99% carnivore and he feels great. He has great energy. He sleeps well. I think he used to get a couple colds every winter and he did get one in the spring of this year. But besides that, he hasn't gotten sick. And he used to get cold. He used to get every cold that comes through. And so that has improved for him. For me too. When we went to Tennessee back in April for our Healing Humanity meetup there, my daughter and son-in-law came with us. All three of them had colds, and I was with them 24/7, and I didn't get it. But then again, I take ivermectin if I'm going to be in a crowd. So I was taking that and taking my vitamins and everything. But yeah, so as far as the immune system and considering I have an immune disease, my immune system is actually doing really well.
That's fantastic. And I'm just so glad that your husband is so supportive and you're doing this together because I think that makes a huge difference. My husband isn't carnivore. He's pretty low carb and he is extremely supportive. And
Good.
I'm so thankful for that. Well, I
Yeah.
want to talk about something else that you have worked on and done that definitely to me touches on another weight on carnivore. So, for those of you who don't know, Lynn authored this wonderful book, Breaking Addictions, and the corresponding workbook. And she also runs a group in Healing Humanity about that. Lynn, what has been your personal experience with addiction and why did you decide to write this book?
Well, it's not as glamorous as anybody would think as far as I got this huge inspiration, but my experience with addiction goes back a really long time, decades. And I had gone to Overeaters Anonymous and it didn't really help. I'd gone to Celebrate Recovery. I do know that I just have an addictive personality when it comes to food. Not so much other things, but definitely when it comes to food. And people do trade one addiction for the other. So, I don't have addictions when it comes to things like substances. I've never been a drinker, never done drugs or smoking or anything like that. And definitely have never been addicted to exercise. Some people, that's their thing, not me. But I do know that you can trade one addiction for the other. So some people, they get off of food, but they go to like get immersed in social media or they get immersed in something else that's just an obsession for them. The 12-step program works for people when you apply it. And so when we started our Breaking Addictions group on Healing Humanity Life, and I haven't mentioned, I am one of the site administrators for Healing Humanity Life, which is the membership site for Healing Humanity, where we offer support. There's lots of different groups there, Zoom calls, but we started a group called Breaking Addictions. And one of our members, Constance, came to me and said, can we start a 12-step program within the Healing Humanity site? And if we said, yes, absolutely. So we started, that was one of we've had this group now for over a year. And so we started out going through an AA book, going through the 12 steps. And the consensus was there's so much that doesn't apply because we're carnivores, and even people who are keto, and even OA. We were using some OA material as well, but even OA, it's a lot about restrictive eating. And that's not the focus when you're dealing with carnivore and keto. Is a lot of people don't even need to track at all, and they get great results. I rarely ever track. But so I just decided that I was going to write a book that can be used in the group as a substitute for what we were using. And so that's what started it. And for each chapter of the book, there's daily reflection questions. So 3 daily reflection questions each day, so that you're applying what you learn and reflecting and guiding you. So there's something to do each day. And so we do have step study meetings, we've got fellowship meetings, but the workbook is basically, it's just optional. It's basically all of the reflection questions from the book, but with lines so that you can actually fill them out in the workbook. And it's repeated 4 times. So a lot of people who go into doing a 12-step program, you don't just do it once. The first time around, you're barely figuring out how the 12-step program works, but you want to, and you're maybe chipping away at the issues because there's a lot of internal analysis going on. You get pretty serious about looking at inside at what's going on in your life that has led to your addiction, and it can be challenging. And so you got to peel back a bunch of layers. And so you can go through the workbook 4 times before you need to get another one. So I worked on it for quite a while, and it just got published a couple months ago. And so I'm just really grateful. It's actually selling pretty well on Amazon. There's people that are using it that aren't in our program, and it's written to be used as a group, but it can be used individually. And so, yeah, I'm excited that it's done. It took me a long time.
Well, it's just so powerful. And I think so many people are battling food addiction and sugar addiction. And it's just recently that it's become recognizable as a condition, although some people still say, oh, no, it's not. But I think it is one of the toughest in addictions in the sense that you can't just quit. You can quit cigarettes, you can quit drugs, you can quit
Yeah.
alcohol, but
Kids
you
with
just
food.
can't really quit food. I mean, it's not
Right.
an option. Your options, feeding to whatever, not good. So I think that it makes it really difficult because you have to eat. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and how
Exactly.
do you balance that? And again, and the foods that are marketed to us are so highly palatable
Right.
and addictive on purpose.
On
And
purpose. Exactly.
yeah, and then it's our fault because we wanna go back and eat more and more, and then just in our crazy world where everything is so busy and so fast-paced that we don't have time to process our emotions and all of that stuff, and so
Yeah.
food becomes a lot of things for a lot of people, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
and the way you've gone about making this a really on the one hand, it's simple, but it's really powerful and going through it. So I ordered it and I've started reading it and going through it. And it just makes a lot of sense. And it's very, I'm going to say affirming isn't the right word,
Well,
but
it was meant to be positive
yes.
and to give people hope, because eating carnivore and keto, it's different. So that's why I don't know if I don't think there's another 12-step book that's focused on carnivore or keto. I think this is the only one that's out there to my knowledge, but it needs to be out there because it is a different, it's not the same. Like I said, with OA is all about restriction. And even things like Weight Watchers, it's like, okay, well, we're going to allow you to have this much sweets. So we're going to allow you to have your carbs and everything. It's not addressing the fact that these are addictive substances. It's not helping you. And so carnivore and keto are a tool to make the journey easier. Because when you can get the food noise out of your head, that sure helps with recovery, but you still have to work through the process of figuring out like what's going on in your life because so many people, like I said, are going to trade one addiction for another. And so to be able to recognize your behaviors and recognize your triggers for going to addictive behavior is definitely really helpful, whether you're carnivore or not. But having the tool of the diet that we're on absolutely helps for sure.
Oh, and that just gave me a flashback. I did Weight Watchers a few times, and there is nothing worse than being told that you can eat like an half an inch square all the way around of cake, and it's this many point. I'm like, oh no, you give me a bite of that and give me the
It's
whole joint.
gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's like whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter. It's off. So
Yeah, and you justify, right? You start to justify in your head doing more. I'm just gonna do this this one time. I'll make up for it. And yeah, it's like we can justify any behavior. I mean, honestly. And so, yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I know people do lose weight on Weight Watchers. My sister has been on Weight Watchers a lot, and she definitely lost weight on it. I was on it and I gained 25 pounds. So it's like, definitely didn't work for me because I'm the same. It's like you tell me I can eat a little bit of something, and that's no way. There's no way. I was never one that could take a bite of a cookie and put it back. I joke because my daughter is a natural moderator. My husband is too. But my daughter would actually have like flavors of ice cream she didn't like. I could never relate to that. I'm like, what do you mean? Flavors of ice cream you don't like? Ice cream. I mean, unless you make it liver flavor, I'm going to eat it, right? I don't understand. That doesn't even compute with me. You know,
yes, I'm the same way. And my husband is also a moderator, and I am very much not.
I'm not at all. I'm a total abstainer.
Yes. Okay, so I generally try to ask everyone this question and gotten some interesting answers to it. And you have done several interviews. You've been interviewed on a documentary and are going to be a film star. So exciting. Um,
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that, but
I want your autograph. Okay, after this, okay, we'll coordinate that. But in all of your interviews and people talking to you, is there ever something that you wish that someone had asked you that they have not?
oh, that's a good question. I've been asked a lot. I think I've done about maybe 15 or 16 different interviews. So I've been asked pretty much everything that I can think of. Let me think for a moment. And I know you're going to edit. So you just edit out all my
Edit.
content.
I can have you and have like thinking bubbles, like
Thinking bubbles.
thought
Yeah.
bubbles.
Hmm.
Thinking.
Um, no one has ever asked me if there's anything I would do differently. And I think that it's assumed that there's nothing that I would do differently because of the results that I've had. And I don't know. Yeah. So no one's ever asked me that because I think they just assume, like I said, that I've had such amazing results that there's nothing I would ever do differently. I think for myself, even though I couldn't exercise for about 5 months into it because my mobility was so bad, when I started to exercise, I was literally limping and staggering. Somebody would have thought I was drunk trying to walk my block because I was in so much pain and I couldn't even walk a straight line. And it was bad, but I did it. I think that if I had to do things differently, I would have been a lot more consistent with my daily exercise and I would have been more gracious with myself about my own limitations. And that's something I'm just learning now at this phase in my life. And hopefully people know Coach Lisa. We love Coach Lisa. I'm working with her. She's helping me when it comes to my exercise. But I have a tendency to, when I feel good, I overdo it because I feel good. And I tried to do her calisthenic exercise challenge and with my daughter, we were filming it and I was pushing it and pushing myself and I was so sore, like I couldn't get unsore. And that's where she says it's okay to be a little sore, but you don't want to be so sore you can't move. And that I had pushed myself to that point. And so one thing I'm just now learning is the importance of being consistent and making sure I'm moving every day, but also understanding my own limitations to the point where I don't push it too far. Because if I push it too far, then I go like 3 or 4 days and I can't move. So if I had to go back, I would probably be doing gentle exercise, walking, lifting some light weights, and just very gradually increasing intensity of what I'm doing. I feel like I would be probably a little further along now because the one thing that I'm really wanting to do now that I've lost so much weight is to improve my muscle tone. It's like, even though I've gained muscle, I think I just need to improve my tone because as we get older, that's so important to make sure that we're strong. So I'd say that's probably what I would do differently.
Wow, you asked yourself a really great question. And I do love that answer because I think giving ourselves grace is so important. And that's not something that we were brought up to do. We're Gen Xers. Suck it up, grow up, get over it. I mean, that's
Mhm.
just how we roll.
Yes.
And I think that sets us back in so many ways. Not only do you make your body sore by doing too much, it also dampens your spirits, raises
Mhm.
your cortisol. It does all kinds of
Right.
things. And so I hope if anybody's listening to this, know that it's okay to be gentle with yourself. You don't have to do everything today and that it's a journey. And as I said before, as you so wonderfully documented, it's that consistency and doing things day after day, and some days more, and some days less. But I think that's where success is. And it's a journey, and it will always be a journey.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we've ever completely arrived at any point where we are 100% healthy on every, in every single pillar of health. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But
And everyone's journey is unique. And so for people who see carnivores and who are like, take someone like Dr. Chafee, who's apparently incredibly healthy, fit, has no real issues. He's kind of an anomaly. He's been doing this for a long time and he has the advantage of starting younger. And so I think don't necessarily compare yourself to other people. Everybody's journey is unique, and the pace at which you heal is unique to you. And I think the biggest factor for you is just like you said, the consistency and showing yourself grace. And don't get discouraged if you don't measure up to somebody like Dr. Chafee or somebody who's really fit and has been doing this for a long time. We have damaged our bodies with our lifestyle and our diet for decades. And so some people have things that aren't going to heal, but you need to get to the optimal healing for you. And you're going to feel so much better. And just, I'd say, don't be discouraged if there's still some lingering things that you deal with, because that's still okay. You're still doing well. And someday down the line, it may heal. People ask me all the time, can carnivore heal MCAS? And almost 2.5 years in, I still have the answer of I don't know. And I may never know, but it's okay.
Yeah, and I think coming to that peace, if you will, with something, not that you're giving up, but just knowing that, hey, every day you're going to do the best to be as healthy as you can be. And if it heals, it heals. And if it doesn't, well, you're still doing the best things for you.
Yeah, and
Um,
not advice. There's so many of us in the carnivore community that are here to offer support. And on every Thursday, I'm on Carrie's channel on his Q&A. Carrie Man, there's a lot of Carries out there. But
Carrie
Carrie Man,
Underwood? No,
yeah,
I'm
I'm on it.
not.
We're on a channel every Thursday evening for a Q&A. Jump in there, ask questions. If you want to join our membership site or someone else's membership site, whatever one resonates with you, get in there and ask the questions. If you're not seeing the healing that you want, there may be a tweak. Like for a lot of people that come to me for help, it's because they realize that they have histamine issues. And that's the missing piece for them. But that's not everybody. Some people just may need to adjust their macros a little bit. Some people are getting stuck in a pattern of eating the exact same thing every day, same time of day, and your body just goes, okay, I'm used to what you're doing, so I'm going to stop improving. And you just need to mix it up a little bit. But it's important to be connected with the community and to tap into the community, because we can help at least offer suggestions. And it's amazing how we need to work together and help each other. And that can make all the difference for somebody who's stuck in an area.
And the carnivore community is amazing. Healing
Absolutely.
Humanity, they have a really awesome group. You need to check them out. Well, Lynn,
I'm
so
partial to it.
yeah, and I could see why. Well, before we end, will you tell us where can people find you and what do you have coming up next?
So I obviously can be found on my YouTube channel, Midlife Carnivore, but I can be found, like I said, every Thursday night. I'm on the Q&A with Carrie, our Healing Humanity team, and Dr. Nelson's usually there. And sometimes we have Coach Lisa. But you can find me on the membership site, Healing Humanity Life. Now, it is a paid membership site, and I just want to make sure people know that it is paid. Not every membership site is paid. There are free ones out there. Ours, we do charge a monthly fee because we are crowd-funded. Our documentary is crowd-funded. And so people will pay to be on our membership site, not only because we offer a lot of support and help, but it's also because they have a heart for the documentary and want to help contribute. A good portion of the donations or the fees that come in from the site do go to the documentary. And obviously, there's cost to maintain the site. So just want to put that out there that we are still, right now we're in the editing phases of the documentary, but even there's so much, and which is so expensive. There's a lot of cost. This is like probably one of the most expensive parts of it. Then there's marketing, getting it out there. And then after the documentary, we're going to be doing a series. So there's ongoing need to have the support. So anybody who really feels like touched by Healing Humanity and what we're doing, we would love to have people join our membership site and support us. But you can find us there on Zoom calls and connect with me. And then my channel email address is midlifecarnivore@gmail.com. And my Healing Humanity email is lynn@healinghumanity.movie.
That's like my favorite email address. I just love that. Healinghumanity.movie.
Yeah.
Doesn't get any better than that. Lynn, it has been awesome having you on here. I'm super excited about the documentary. Can't wait for that. And you're going to be at Hack Your Health, right?
Yes, yes. I'm going to be at Hack Your Health next month. We're going to have Healing Humanity is going to have a booth, So I will be helping Ashley from Carnivore Brothers, and my husband will be there. So we'll be manning the booth. I'll have books there and oh, I didn't even mention too my children's books. So
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
yeah, so myself and Amy Haas, a lot of people know Amy, have been working together to create carnivore children's books. And so we have 7, maybe more. I don't know. I can't keep track, but we have a lot of children's books. So we have an activity, a comic one. The first one was a comic book, and it has activities, coloring pages, and that's the one that some of the proceeds go to support Healing Humanity. We've got a book where Dr. Barry's kids and Granny Barry are the stars. We've got a holiday series of books. We're working on new and more books as we go. But yeah, I think there might be one other Carnivore Kids book out there, but I think we've got the vast majority of the Carnivore Kids books on Amazon.
Well, how fun is that? And just
Right.
starting kids young, not thinking that that's the weirdest thing ever is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah. We've
cool.
made beef, bacon, butter, and eggs into superheroes, and we don't bash whole foods. We don't go bashing vegetables and fruit, and we don't do that. We don't really talk a lot about those foods, but we do talk about seed oils, all of the chemicals, processed foods, sugar, the things that are really unhealthy for kids that will help mess up their metabolism because young kids, they're metabolically healthy. So for any parent who's concerned that it's a huge push on carnivore for kids, it's not. It's like we're helping educate kids on the dangers of the processed foods, the seed oils, the chemicals, the sugar, and then introducing them to these superfoods that typically aren't shown as superfoods, power foods, which is the beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, that they're actually healthy for them. And so hopefully kids will start asking, can I have bacon and eggs for breakfast? And ask for it more, just like they do with other marketing for kids, right? They market the cereals that have a fun cartoon on the cover and a prize in the middle. And the next thing you know, your kids are asking for it. So that's our goal, is just to get the kids asking for the healthy foods.
Uh, well, that's cool. And I'm going to have to get some of those books too. I'm going to come over to the merchandise booth and buy everything you guys have with money. Yeah. Hope my husband's not watching this. Anyway, well, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and I
Yeah.
can't wait to see you next month.
Awesome. Wonderful to be here.